Welcome to the Ad Nauseam podcast, where classical gourmands everywhere can finally get their fill. Join us for a delectable discussion of Greco-Roman civilization stretching from the Minoans and Mycenaeans through the Renaissance and right down to the present. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here are your hosts, Dr. David Noe and Dr. Jeff Winkle.
Welcome, Ad Nauseam listeners, to episode 152 of the podcast. I'm here in the basement of Vomitorium South, with my friend and the guy that I do this with, Jeff Winkle. How you doing, Jeff?
I'm doing just fine. Do you think that our show has reached the point where we can just simply refer to it as the podcast? You didn't even say what the name of the podcast
I didn't?
is. No.
Okay.
So
Let's start over. Welcome, Ad Nauserinos, to the Ad Nauseam podcast.
Okay. All right. That's better. Yeah.
How are you doing, Jeff?
I'm doing just fine. So we're actually doing an early morning pod. Well, I guess,
9:12 a.m.?
Yes.
How long have you been awake?
I've been awake since about 5:30. Yeah. So, but this is a lot earlier than we usually do the show.
That is true.
That's right. So how are you feeling?
I'm doing fine.
Because I'm a little.
But I asked how you're doing.
I told you I'm doing just fine.
Yeah, that wasn't very, what's the word I'm looking for? Interesting? That was not very descriptive.
Well, I could go
give the people something
all right,
more.
Okay. Well, it's summertime. I have a little bit more free time on my hand.
There's 1 point.
And I've been working on my memoirs.
Oh, have you really?
Yes, and I'm working through a fairly difficult chapter. When in my early childhood in 1970s, and my dad, my mom were out of work.
Oh no!
And so we decided to kind of pack into the old jalopy and head out west.
Really?
Yes, we heard of the promises of out in California.
Yes,
might be some more opportunity, and so we kind of slowly made our way across the dust blown parts of the Midwest and such,
Oklahoma and Kansas,
exactly, and just kind of scraping by.
Wow!
My dad was hand to mouth, and but. He got a short-term position on a farm.
Okay.
And he actually made enough money that he came to the crew one night and said, "Hey, we can actually splurge a little."
Okay.
And we know some time.
No, were you a part of the crew?
I was part of the crew. We had the family, right?
Okay.
And he took kind of the few meager dollars that he had, and he took us downtown to this where we were staying, and there was this really nice French bakery. And he splurged, and we had a nice kind of French breakfast with these pancakes and such.
Right.
But later on,
oh no!
It turned out that it turned on us, and we all kind of wound up with horrible cases of food poisoning.
Oh no!
And thereafter, that meal was known as the crepes of wrath. You saw it coming, didn't you?
A little bit. Right. When you said dust blown,
yes,
I thought about dust bowl.
Yes.
And that headed me in the direction of Steinway.
Steinbeck.
Whatever it is.
Right.
Steinbeck.
Yeah.
Still, it was worth it.
Okay.
The payoff was good.
Good. Okay. Excellent.
And it reminds me of a shirt you're wearing.
Yes. Yeah. That I'm wearing right now.
Exactly.
You want to go into that?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
So Jeff's wearing a shirt right now that has a kind of a logo of the institution whereby he is employed.
Yes.
GRCC, which stands for Grand Rapids Community College. Mm-hmm. And right beneath the logo is a kind of a slogan, right?
Well, slogan.
And the slogan says language and thought.
And thought.
Right.
Right.
You care to defend that?
I'm not eager to defend it.
Okay.
I'm
why are you wearing it?
Well, this is the department that I belong to.
You belong to the Department of Language and Thought?
I do, exactly. And I'm very proud to be a member of this department, though I've never been crazy about the name of the department.
Okay.
However, so this is a department name that has to encompass a humanities department, has to encompass communications, French, Spanish, and philosophy. So what would be a better name for a department that has that kind of broad umbrella?
So no, I'm responsible for that?
No, I'm asking just kind of, I'm throwing it out there into the ether.
I see.
Right. So, well, I've never been crazy.
Hurling into the ether, as it were.
Exactly. So I've never been crazy about the name of my own department.
Right.
A department which I love, but I've never been able to come up with a better name for it. Not that I've spent a whole lot of time thinking about it.
No.
Right.
No. Has anyone spent a lot of time thinking about it?
Well, clearly from the very beginning, that was not the case.
Right. What strikes me as funny about it is that it's the and part. If it were the language department or the thought department.
Yes.
But it's language and thought.
Well, if it was just the language department,
that part really gets me.
Then I couldn't be in it.
Because you don't you don't speak.
Well, the language
you don't
refers
read, you don't write.
to the teaching of foreign language.
I see. Specifically at GRCC, the French and the Spanish.
The French and the Spanish, and the German and the Arabic.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Right.
Right. So, I'm sure there's a better name out there.
Okay.
But I don't think it's my job to come up with it.
Okay, fine.
Right.
Are you going to ask how I'm doing?
How you doing, Dave?
Yeah, I'm doing okay.
Good.
I have to say, I was a little put off my feed. Do you know that expression?
You lost your appetite.
It's an agricultural metaphor. You say someone is off their feed.
Yeah.
It's from livestock, right? They're just not eating well.
Yes.
For whatever reason, they're off their feed.
Yeah.
Because as I was walking into the vomitorium this morning, the place where you and I record this little podcast, someone, I won't say who, but let's just say it's my co-host, started getting on my case about being overly formal. Even though I'm dressed in a sweatshirt, I'm dressed in kind of sweatish pants and a t-shirt that even has a kind of, look at this.
Yeah.
It's got some, no, I thought it was my tie-dye shirt. It's black.
Right.
Anyway,
yes.
This is pretty informal.
I wasn't referring to your sartorial choices. I was referring to your demeanor.
And how was my demeanor?
Well, one of the things that I really like about you, I find very charming about you, is that you have this very kind of reserved.
You're looking for an adjective here that's not going to sound like an insult.
You have a reserved kind of formality about you, but that masks a tremendous reservoir of wonderful weirdness, and I find that juxtaposition really quite enjoyable.
Oh, okay.
Right. So
a nice save.
Right. So
nice
I find it kind of funny.
Masking a reservoir
for someone that I've known for more than 20 years.
Yes.
And I'm greeted in the morning kind of like the way a maitre d' would greet
a maitre d'.
Yeah, like to a couple of swells coming through the door of a fine restaurant.
I see.
Like, yes. How do you do, sir?
Yeah, this is going to be a long episode.
All right. Shall we get into it? Shall we move
yes,
on
I
from
guess
this?
if we must.
Okay, we got a shout out.
Yes, we do.
Why don't you get us into this?
I'll get us started.
Yeah.
Salwete et chairete. I am Eric Soul, and I'm from Dallas, Texas. I like this line. Long-time listener, first-time shout-out requester.
I like that as well.
I do too.
Yep.
I'm always excited when I see a new episode drop, though all the episodes are great.
Wow.
Say more, Eric. I think my favorites are when you focus on an individual like Heinsius or Anna Maria von Skurman.
Okay.
I'm also very much enjoying the walk through Marrou's book. Keep it up.
All right. So he should hopefully enjoy this episode
I
today.
think so.
Okay.
It's got his name on it. He says, I was very happy to see an episode on Lucian. He has some really interesting stuff. Reading his true history is certainly the most fun I've ever had reading Greek.
Huh.
Then he says, there's probably a ton of hapax legomena just from the various creatures that he, that is Lucian, probably invented. So some lexical help is going to be necessary for almost anybody.
Well, he dropped a hapax legomena on us.
He did.
I'm impressed already. Yeah.
Yes. And he realizes that it's, well, let's see. There is probably a ton. I'm going to break out some formality here.
Okay.
There are probably a ton of hapax legomena because legomena is plural.
Plural, yes.
Right. Why don't you pick it up there?
All right. So he says...
Reading it this way.
Yes, reading it this way will be a little slow, but the discoveries you make along the way will make the experience worth it. If you're like me and you're not surrounded by people who like Greek as much as you do, tell me about it.
Yes.
You may have to hire a tutor to do it with you like I did.
I don't think that... I don't think Eric is in the Department of Language and Thought.
You don't think so?
I don't think so.
All right. He says, oh, woe to the wallet. We need more people who can read Greek. Agreed. If only there existed an affordable program that could take one from neophyte to erudite. Oh, I saw
Did you
what
see
he
that?
did.
Yeah, you saw what you did there. And then he adds this, which is really nice and is probably, to my knowledge, sui generis. I don't think any shout-out requester has said something like this. Yeah. He says, I encourage you to give thanks to God for each other. Oh, there goes my morning. I was intending to grouse about you.
Yeah.
That's where I was headed.
But Mr. Soul pulled the rug out from under.
He did.
All right.
He says, it's a blessing to have a friend to talk through such great things. I'm thankful for you both.
Yeah, that's great.
That's really nice.
And I'm very thankful for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's just say it's mutual.
All right. Okay. Well, yes. Okay. That's fine. We'll leave it there. Yeah.
So what are we doing this morning, Jeff?
We are into the next part. I think this is part X, part 10.
Yes.
Of our look at
Episode 10 on
Marrou's text on the history of education.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And boy, it's been a couple episodes since we've been here. But,
we did 2 on Lucian.
So I think today we're getting into the Hellenistic era.
Correct. Right. So this is a part 2 of the book, chapter 2. But I think it would not be out of place to review Marrou a little bit.
Yeah.
Because here we are in the 10th episode on this topic. You think this is going to go as long as the Aeneid?
It might. I mean, where are we in the book? Are we about halfway?
No.
Are we past halfway?
We're past 1/3.
Past 1/3. Okay, so we're not even halfway. Okay.
No, we're not even halfway.
Okay, all right.
This is good stuff. What's the rush, Mr. Informality?
No, it is good stuff. I have some complaints that I'm going to air today about Mr. Marrou.
Some grievances?
Some grievances, yes. But,
some feats of strength?
Right. Well,
okay.
I will air them later. Yes.
All right. So who was Marrou and Henri Irénée, H.I. Marrou, and why should we care about this question, Jeff?
Well, he was a Christian humanist in his outlook. His work was primarily in the spheres of late antiquity and the history of education. So as I understand it, this book is it's a landmark work,
yes,
right? And I don't think it's really been surpassed since this.
I mean,
in terms of like one tome, which talks about the whole history of education from its beginnings in the Greek world to late antiquity. It's unmatched.
That's right.
And so, and as such, that's just an important contribution to human knowledge in and of itself.
Absolutely.
Right.
So we ourselves were educated,
Yep.
And do we continue to be so, do you think?
Of course.
Did you engage in any education this past week?
Yes, I'm teaching some online courses.
No, I mean dispensing of it.
What do you mean?
Acquisition of it.
Acquisition.
What did you learn this past week, Michael?
Let me see. What did I learn this week? Well, I'm reading a book on the Leopold Loeb. You familiar with the thrill killers of these two deranged young men who killed a young boy in Chicago, and it was one of these landmark cases. They were defended by by Clarence Darrow.
Historical,
right? And so it was one of these cases
1930s?
that kind of changed jurisprudence and how these kinds of the insanity pleas and everything. It's a dark.
Sounds a little grim.
It is very grim, but I think it's an important episode in American history and legal history as well.
So are you interested in jurisprudence, or are you just more interested in really great storytelling?
Great storytelling, but
okay.
I'm open to learning about all things.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let me throw the question on you. What did you acquire this week?
Well, I finished reading a novel that I had long wanted to read.
Okay.
And that was Pride and Prejudice.
Oh, really? Okay.
By Jane Austen, because I'd never read it.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed it.
You did?
I was just struck with admiration by the time I got to the end.
Excellent. So you read it? Was it just on one of these lists? Well,
yes.
This is one of the things I have to do.
I never read any Jane Austen.
Okay.
And I've been pilloried. This was like a revenge read, I guess you could say.
Yeah, right.
By others, because I have holes in my education, gaping lacunae.
Yes.
And I really wanted to, conquer this eventually.
Yeah.
But I found out that I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to read a couple more.
You move on to Sense and Sensibility?
I'm reading Emma now.
Okay.
Then I'll read Sense and Sensibility, and then I'm going to say The Summer of Austen is over.
Is over, right.
Yeah.
Well, I think those three, that is kind of the trifecta.
I think
right?
so.
Yeah.
You've probably read them.
I read Pride and Prejudice years ago, but I've not read anything else by Austen. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's Comedy of Manners. So we ourselves, we're educated.
Yeah.
And we continue to be educated, right? I mean, we're continuing on in that quest of education. Mm-hmm. We ourselves are educators. Do you think that's fair to say?
Absolutely.
Oh, right. And there has been a great resurgence lately in so-called classical education.
So-called?
Yes.
Okay.
I like the scare quotes.
Okay, all right. Yeah.
Because I have found hardly anybody can define what it is.
Yes.
And to me, the most obvious definition, classical education, is the reading of the Greek and Latin corpus of literature.
Yeah.
Is that in which many people are least interested.
Yeah.
Which I cannot comprehend.
Right. So we kind of teased this. This will be an episode at some point, right? We gotta tackle this.
The reason why I have delayed is because I want to write a number of theses.
Okay.
And in the 16th and 17th century, the era that I study and write and publish on, theologians, scholars, they would write out a series of theses. Franciscus Junius is one sterling example. 35 theses on theology. Each one is meant to be an extraordinarily concise and pithy statement, and they build one on the next.
Okay.
Theodore Beza did this. His theses on the two natures of Christ and how that interacts with the notion of Christ as one person in the Trinity. And the theses are all related, and they build a coherent argument.
Yeah.
So I've been working on some theses on classical education, but I don't have it done. And once I have a consistent, coherent argument with which I'm satisfied, then we can talk about it.
Sounds great. I look forward to it.
You can pick it apart if need be.
That sounds really interesting. All right. Okay.
So, Henri Irénée Marrou, best known for his work, History of Education in Antiquity. He edited the Sources Chrétiennes, the early Christian work, the Letter to Diognesis, and made his bones, as they say, as a Christian humanist, putting all of this material together. Elected a foreign member of the Royal Netherlands Academy of Arts and Sciences in 1967, and he has a very, very long CV of impressive publications. St. Augustine and Augustinianism, Paris, 1955. Historical Knowledge, Paris, 1954. What is L'ambivalence du thème de l'histoire chez St. Augustine? The uncertainty of the age of history during the time of St. Augustine, 1950. So a serious scholar. And where have we been thus far, Jeff, in our study of Marrou?
But before we dive back in, I noticed in the the little bio that you had printed up.
I think it's Wikipedia.
That he once wrote under a pseudonym.
Yes.
Henri Davidson.
Yes.
Do you have any idea why he did that?
No.
Okay.
But the Henri part is a little bit of a giveaway.
Well, I mean,
how many Henris are there?
Oh, when you in Paris, you can't throw a stone without hitting an Henri. They're everywhere, right? So it makes me think of. I mean, was he so huge that he says, "Listen, I don't know if people are buying my books because they like them or it's because it's got Marrou." It's like
maybe
Stephen King wrote those books as Richard Bachman.
Yes.
Because
have you read any of those?
I have.
Yeah.
Because he wanted to see would they buy it if they didn't see my name at the top of it. So,
I have a theory about that if you'd like to hear it.
I do, please.
Okay, so I think that an author has arrived when the font size of their name on the book cover is larger than the font size of the title.
Yes, yeah.
Because then clearly you're buying it for the name. The title is totally irrelevant.
Right.
And until the font size of your name is larger than the font size of the title, you haven't really arrived.
Okay. That's interesting because I often will take that as a cue. I've noticed the same thing.
Right.
When I notice that, my first thought is this is probably something that I don't want to read.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Sure.
So they've arrived commercially.
Right.
Artistically?
Probably not.
Probably the opposite.
No.
I mean, that's every airport novel.
Exactly.
James Patterson, David Baldacci,
Danielle Steele.
Right. Danielle Steele.
Someone Collins. Susan Collins.
Suzanne Collins. Yes.
Suzanne Collins.
Yes, exactly.
Do you have any pen names?
Did we talk this on episode 1?
No, I don't think so.
Jim Bick.
Yes, right. John Rollerball.
Right.
Was this episode 1?
We're back to episode 1, right? Yeah.
Penford Plumright.
Well, that's a good one.
That's my favorite.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to bust that out.
I don't know how far I'd get with Jim Bick.
You don't think so?
Oh my gosh. All right. So you asked where are we?
Well, why don't you just look at page 3 of the script,
Okay.
Winkle?
So are we still reviewing here?
Yes.
So part 1 in Marrou's book, made up of 7 chapters, he takes us from Homer through Isocrates.
Yes.
And that's pretty close to where we left off.
Pretty close. Yeah. The culture of the scribe begins to replace the culture of the hero.
Right.
Previously, the scribe was just the individual who kept track of your receipts and so forth, and it was the hero, the warrior, who was the most impressive. But eventually, the utility and the drama of knowledge began to edge out the man of war,
right,
the martial hero, so that by the time we get to the Hellenistic age, the person who can control the male controls information.
That's right. But what struck me about the chapter that we read for today is that we do see something of a reversal of that, right?
Okay.
So I think that,
in athletics.
Well, I mean, there is at least in this era of kind of later education for young men, like the ephebia, which we'll talk about. There is a kind of return to that, at least kind of sporting ideal.
Okay.
And I think we also see a move away from, one of the things we saw in Marrou's chapter, early chapters, is that there is a ongoing struggle is who should be educated? Who is this for?
Right.
And there is a movement, in the Platonic and the post-Platonic era, that education maybe should be for most people, right? At least up to a certain point. And I think in the Hellenistic era, we do see, Marrou suggests that we see kind of a return to this ideal that at least later education is for elites only. And its role, its point is to preserve the aristocracy. And so
Is that what you're going to take issue with?
well, no, I don't take issue. It's more, it's more kind of stylistic stuff, which is neither here nor there.
Can you tell the people what is in part 2 as a whole, which is where we are right now?
Yes, part 2 is made up of 11 chapters, and it talks about the civilization of paideia through the concept of classical humanism. So I think the last episode we did on Marrou was talking about paideia.
That's correct.
Right.
And we did an episode back in the 120s, maybe.
Okay.
The Renaissance notion of the dignity of man.
Oh, yes.
Remember that?
Yep.
We were Charles Trinkhaus.
That's right.
Was the Renaissance scholar we looked at. So that's going to be in his wheelhouse. And then part 3, Jeff, that the audience can look forward to.
Yes. He closes the book with 10 chapters plus an epilogue, beginning with the old Roman education and ending with the end of the school of Antiquity.
Right.
So he kind of gets us up to the edge of what we call the medieval era.
That's
right?
correct.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
So I'd like to give this kind of opening quote, which is a repetition from the first episode of this series to remind the readers where we are. He says in the introduction on page 11, that's Roman numeral 11, quote, "It is always useful to have at hand a brief account of any question of importance." I can buy that.
Agreed.
Yes.
I like that.
All right. So let's get into it then. Chapter 2 of part 2, which is entitled
The Educational Institutions of the Hellenistic Age.
Great. So, Jeff, why don't you read the first couple of sentences here from Marrou?
Right. In its most highly developed form, Hellenistic education consisted of a complicated course of studies, which began when the pupil was 7 and went on until he was about 20. For a description of its various stages, there is no better system than that employed by Hippocrates. So long as we ignore his passion for symmetry, we know how, from the time of Pythagoras to the days when the fathers of the church developed their complicated biblical allegories, the men of antiquity loved to speculate on numbers. All right. So is this the first time he's dropped Hippocrates?
I think so.
Okay.
Hippocrates, if I may continue.
Yes.
Hippocrates, we are told, divided human life into 8 periods of 7 years each. Education took up the first 3 periods, so 3/8, and these were thus allocated: paideon, small child, up to 7 years of age; pais, child, from 7 to 14, and meirakion, adolescent, from 14 to 21. Aristotle used, on the whole, a similar system, and his description of it gives us the best idea of its actual content. Now, have you heard the criticism that some have that the notion of adolescence is entirely invented as a modern invention and that it didn't exist among the ancients?
I have not heard that.
Yes, it's a common, I would say, reaction to the glorification of adolescence and the kind of license that adolescents are given sometimes.
Okay.
The notion being that, well, you have a short period of time in which you don't need to be responsible because you're in a liminal phase.
Yes.
You're neither child nor adult.
Yes.
And so, to my mind, some have reacted against that by saying adolescence is entirely a contemporary or modern invention, and the ancients didn't know anything about that.
I've never encountered that.
That's good, because I don't think it's a good idea.
Right.
I think it's a mostly bankrupt idea.
Yeah.
I think what they're trying to say is that the expectations put on adolescents in the past were much higher and maybe not altogether unreasonable.
Right.
Just because you're an adolescent doesn't mean you don't have to be responsible.
Right.
And of course, I agree with that. But the notion that the ancients didn't have that concept is just plainly false, as Marrou demonstrates. There's clearly a time where people have to figure out who are they and what are they going to what are they going to do with their lives?
Yeah.
They still need to pick up their clothes and, sweep the floor and everything else.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I know a big part of the kind of the cultural conversation out there right now is the problem of extended adolescence, right? And so adolescence in that definition of a time where you don't have responsibilities,
Correct.
right? That kind of idea,
Right.
And the problem in culture of people extending that into their 20s and 30s.
Yes, they're mid to late 20s or even early 30s.
Yes, exactly.
But certainly we can distinguish between a difficult time of decision making and a time in which no one should have responsibilities.
Right.
That seems like a pretty easy distinction.
Indeed, agreed. Yep.
But the educational institutions of the Hellenistic age had a threefold division, right? So 8 periods of life of 7 each takes us up to 56.
Yes.
So Jeff, you got another 3-4 years.
And then I'm done?
And then that's it.
That's it?
Cashing in the chips.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think in a previous chapter, I think wasn't it the Platonic ideal that like the highest levels of education would be completed in your 50s?
Yes.
And so I mean, so that kind of structure seems to
reflects this.
It reflects this, but there's still kind of the open question of for whom would all of these levels be required?
Right.
Is this only for the elites, or just most people would go through the first stage and then get your blue collar job and that would be it?
I don't know.
Yeah.
So what did the child do from the age of from birth up to the age of 7?
So up to the age of 7, the child stayed at home and was looked after by the womenfolk. The ancients, who were not interested in the child as such, being concerned only with the ultimate aims of education, took little interest in this first stage. In fact, they did not look upon it as part of paideia in the proper sense of the word at all.
Isn't that interesting?
That is.
Not interested in not interested in the child as such.
Yeah.
No sense of, aren't children cute? Aren't they interesting? Isn't this such a formative time? Aren't they, whom do they look like? Do they look like the dad? Do they look like the mom? All those questions, irrelevant, I guess.
I guess so.
To the ancients.
Right? That struck me as a very sweeping statement. I don't have evidence to challenge that, but it is a radically different way of thinking about childhood than kind of the idealism that our modern Western culture tends to put on it. Right?
Very much romanticize it.
Right. And I think even, when you hear about, should the government be funding universal preschool?
Right.
Right. There, I think the thought behind that is that if you don't get proper preschool,
right,
well, then you're already, behind the 8 ball.
Correct.
Right. And so I think
you're badly tracked.
Right.
You'll never graduate from some institution of higher education if you don't get preschool.
Exactly. So
did you go to preschool?
I did go to preschool.
Oh.
Yes, I have very few memories of it. I remember making crafts about dinosaurs,
right,
and enjoying it.
Maybe some macaroni,
exactly.
Some crayons,
gluing it to various things.
Right.
How about you? Were you a preschooler?
I did not go to preschool.
No. Right. You jumped right into kindergarten.
I skipped right ahead to kindergarten.
Yeah.
Yep.
Was that because your parents needed you working on the farm?
No, I don't think preschool was as universal then as it is now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe cost had something to do with it.
Yeah. But I guess from an ancient perspective, they would not think too much of preschool, right? And it's so I guess this is suggesting that it's not until your age 7,
right,
that the culture then kind of recognizes
time to get started.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So says Marrou, page 102 still. The school period began when the child reached the age of 7 and in theory lasted until he was 14. Aristotle is not so precise. He says until puberty, hebe. Thus, it was more or less the equivalent of our primary school education. The following period culminated in a course of civic and military training known as the ephebia.
Yes.
Which is epi, right? The Greek preposition epi, and then this noun hebe.
Hebe. Yep.
So ephebia just means for an adolescent or for the youth.
Yes.
That's the time.
Yes. So he continues, in some places, circumstances were exceptional. In Egypt, for example, because it was a colony, the ephebia began when the child was 14. In Sparta, it lasted throughout adolescence, but generally speaking, it was not reached until the end of the 3rd period. And in most cases, it only lasted a year. Very occasionally, it lasted 2 years, and it could go on for even 3. But even then, it always took place between the 18th and 20th year. One of the things I found really interesting about this chapter is Marrou makes the argument is during the Hellenistic era, really no matter where you go in after the Alexandrian conquests,
Right.
is you do find kind of a similar foundation. Here and there, there's differences that how long the ephebia could be, when did it start, but roughly speaking, kind of this general program of study between 18 and 20, you can find a lot of similarities whether you are in Greece or whether you are in Egypt.
Right. Pretty much anywhere in the Mediterranean.
Yeah.
Jeff, what does Marrou tell us about how education took place in the privileged centers? This is on page 103. Were there some distinctions?
Yes. So he says, finally, in certain privileged centers, first in Alexandria, then in Pergamus, and later under the empire in Athens, there appeared a sort of crowning point of the whole system. Establishments like the Museum, where the most highly qualified men of the day engaged in research and gathered young disciples around them to form genuine institutes of higher learning. All right. So this is one of my maybe it's an issue with Marrou. It's just maybe an issue with my memory.
Okay.
So how is this different or distinguished from the kind of the pre-Hellenistic era? It strikes me as I'm reading this is that wasn't this already going on?
Maybe.
What's different here?
You mean there was the Lyceum, there was the Academy?
Right. Is this a development of sorts, or is he just saying, well, it is kind of the same thing, but it's happening here under this?
My understanding is that it's now in the Hellenistic era much more organized, much more systematized, much more broadly open to different levels of society, and it's not really attached to the purposes and projects of the polis, right? It's not a civic education anymore. It's pursuing knowledge and personal development, not training men to lead the state.
Yeah, but at the same time, he does say that, he goes on at the bottom of page 103, that it says that the control of education does ultimately fall to the local municipalities.
Right.
And there was no Alexandrian Department of Education that was calling the shots.
Right.
So it struck me as kind of interesting is that given that's the case, and there are some, around the margins, some differences. When does ephebia start? When does it end? It is still strikingly very similar, despite the fact that we do have various municipalities, all of them kind of calling their own shots on what makes up a proper education.
Well, let's go on and
Okay.
read
All right.
and see what he says.
Okay.
You could well be right. This could be a significant and pointed criticism. Public instruction.
Yes.
Also page 103. Marrou says, in the Hellenistic era, education stopped being a matter of private initiative and became, generally speaking, subject to official control. This was something new, at least on such a large scale.
Okay, all right.
So
There we go.
there's your
Here we go.
newness.
Yes.
It is true that Aristotle makes it a legislator's strict duty to legislate on education. He says, nomotheteon peri paideas. Rules must be made on the subject of paideia. But in this, the great philosopher was speaking prophetically, for in his own time, any system of, quote, public instruction under the control of the state was a peculiarity of aristocratic states like Sparta and Crete, whose totalitarian tendencies we have already mentioned.
Yeah.
To the men of Hellenistic times, however, legislation on school affairs had become the normal thing, one of the necessary attributes of the civilized state. Hence their surprise when in Republican Rome, they came across an archaic stage of development in which education was still outside the control of the state.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on there in that paragraph.
There is, right?
Can you help us untangle it a little bit?
Well, yeah. Well, I think it's the details that he gives in the next paragraph about when we do see this shift from private to public will become clearer. One of the things that just jumped out at me at the very end of this is I found this a challenge in teaching kind of ancient Greek and Roman history, is that we tend to think of for proper reasons is that the Roman moment follows the Greek moment, right? But I think what that often misses is that there's a lot going on in Rome. Simultaneously, right? And the Romans are already developing their own ideas about education while all this stuff is going on in the East.
Many of which they seemed later to jettison.
Right.
Or just to throw away altogether and adopt Hellenistic patterns.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But what strikes you here in terms of this paragraph here and Aristotle speaking prophetically?
Well, I think the main point he's making is that state control of public instruction was primarily for aristocratic elites in Aristotle's time, but Aristotle says there should be a more general law giving. There should be a more general institutionalization of the system of education.
Yeah.
And that became the case in the Hellenistic era.
Yeah.
But we did skip this part about Xenophon in his work, the Isomachos, and his description of the ideal woman. And that may be interesting to the listeners. Jeff, you want to read that part?
Sure. So Marrou writes, the Hellenistic notion of the ideal woman was very different from that of Xenophon's Isomachos. This is how the latter gentleman describes his chosen spouse, the girl who had delighted his heart. Quote, she was only 15 when we were married. She lived a very sheltered life and knew that it was her job to be neither seen nor heard. What more could I want? She could weave, spin, make her own clothes, and look after her spinning girls. And no flightiness. Her parents had seen to that. Excellent, huh?
Mm-hmm. And you should point out that the excellent huh part is in the quotation.
It is, right? Yes,
That's
please.
not your comment on it.
Yes, thank you.
And this follows on Marrou saying, as for the girls, from now on, that is in Hellenistic times, they went to primary and secondary schools just like the boys. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, and not only in Sparta, to the palaestra, that is the wrestling grounds, and to the gymnasium.
Yes, yeah.
So here's one other major difference.
Right.
In Hellenistic times, education was for boys and girls alike.
Right, right.
And the ideal of a woman is not the one that Xenophon represents, as neither seen nor heard. Right. Out of the public eye, can do some handiwork around the house, but has been so sheltered by her parents that she doesn't have any adventurous ideas.
Right.
The antithesis of Jane Austen.
Yes. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. No, that's interesting. I think in previous chapters we learned that, I mean, there were some rumblings of this, right? There were aspects of older Greek education that said, well, girls should be taught music and dance, and they should be taught to kind of run religious rites.
Tightly controlled, though.
Tightly controlled, but
within the context of the home.
Yes.
Not outside the home.
Well, I mean, in terms of except for like public religious ritual, right? So I think it would be wrong to say that this comes out of nowhere. Right. But now it's part of kind of an official, kind of broadly agreed upon idea that girls should receive education as well.
Mm-hmm. Public education.
Yep.
Is it time to get down to a few facts?
Let's do it.
Okay.
Yes. You want read this for us?
This is the bottom of one of three, entitled "Education: A Municipal Concern." Marrou says, quote, "But it is time to get down to a few facts. In the first place, the state in this connection is the city, the municipality, not the kingdom. The Hellenistic kingdom was not, like the late Roman Empire, totalitarian. In a sense, it was a liberal state which reduced its responsibilities to a minimum and possessed only such machinery as was absolutely essential. It was quite prepared to decentralize wherever possible and entrust the public services to the municipalities. This was particularly so in the case of educational institutions. We occasionally find a Hellenistic monarch intervening in the administration of or the policy of some particular school, but only privately as a benefactor or patron. It was only in the time of the Roman Empire that the sovereign began to interfere in this field as a legislator. And even then, as we shall see, this was in the first place mainly in order to remind the municipalities of their duties, not to take their place."
That's so interesting.
What do you think, Jeff?
Well, I mean, as you're reading that, the immediate corollary that comes to mind is in the American experiment, like the states being the laboratories of democracy.
Yes.
Right. And that ongoing,
and the charter school movement, which is so big right now.
Sure. And that ongoing tension between to what degree should states just come up with their own educational policy, and to what degree should there be federal standards for everybody?
Right.
And how that tension should, at its best, drive a very important conversation rather than being just kind of a mudslinging match.
Are you interested in the conversation, or are you interested in the outcome?
Can I pick both?
Yes, I guess so.
Right. But
because a lot of people are interested in the conversation. We need to have a good conversation. I'm not so interested in the conversation.
Oh, no, of course,
unless it leads to proper outcomes.
That I guess I just assumed that was implied.
I see.
Yes. Right.
There you go again, making assumptions.
But before I get your thoughts on this, it also kind of struck me as maybe a little historical background here is that, I mean, one of the things I find fascinating about Alexander the Great is that when he dies, and he doesn't really seem to select a clear heir.
Right.
The question is, what did Alex have a plan?
Right.
What was the idea in conquering all of this territory? And so I think maybe some of that decentralization not comes from, well, this is the best way to do it from on high, but just from the fact that the Hellenistic nation states, such as they weren't very organized from
Not
the
at
top,
all.
right? And so by
You're saying necessity drove this.
yes, exactly. And so I thought, when I read this, I think that, at least for the listener, I think maybe that's, rather than think, that there was just an emperor who was just saying, I'm just going to be hands off. I don't think that was the case.
No, it was probably, maybe it was disinterest, but lack of ability to control things at a distance.
Right. Whereas, as Marrou talks about, when you get to the Roman era, the Romans were much more organized along those lines.
Bureaucratized.
Right. And so there's a vast difference between a Caesar like Trajan and one of the kind of the loose inheritors of what Alexander left behind.
Yeah, one of the Seleucids or the Ptolemies or something like that.
Right.
So do you think that education should be conducted the same way in Juneau, Alaska, as in Manhattan?
No.
As in Miami, Florida, as in Portland, Oregon,
Right.
San Antonio, Texas,
No.
the Twin Cities?
No, absolutely.
You think there should be lots of variety?
Yeah, absolutely. In the same way that I think that making a federal benchmark of what the minimum wage should be, and not take into account kind of cost of living across. I mean, that's
You're getting political here, Winkle.
Am I? I don't like to dip my toes in there, but it just seems to me absurd to think that there would be. I mean, and I think that's what I find so interesting about this, that it's kind of this nothing new under the sun, right? These struggles between public and private, and standards that everyone should have to some degree, and then it becomes more of kind of a private choice. And how do you kind of navigate those tensions?
Well, notice that he says that the Hellenistic monarch did intervene sometimes, but privately,
Yeah.
as a benefactor or a patron.
Yes.
So the monarch would give large bequests to individual school systems, you might say. Mm-hmm. Imagine if the current president, Mr. Biden, gave a large personal gift to the school where Mrs. Winkle teaches, right? Potter's House.
Yeah.
That would be the model.
Right.
Not with any particular control, but maybe for the erection of a building or
Right.
the institution of a Department of Language and Thought, something like that. That would be, an analog to the contemporary scene.
Yeah. Or, I mean, do you see something similar, say, when, like around here, I mean, Grand Rapidians will know these names, and elsewhere, like the DeVos family,
Yeah.
right? Well,
But they're not political.
they're not political, but
authorities.
I mean, you're right. That is the kind of the main difference there. I think that, of course, if that happened today, if Joe Biden said, "Here, I'm cutting a check for $500,000 for
Right.
this private school,"
There would be a lot of complaining
there would be a lot of complaining
because
right?
of the apparent inequity.
Exactly, and it would never ever happen.
No.
Right. So here's I don't want to dwell on my complaints about Marrou, but when I read a paragraph like this talking about the Hellenistic monarch doing something like this, I'm looking. Okay, where's my example? Where's a footnote?
Yeah, you want more there.
I do want a little bit more there, but I understand he's
But
covering
it is-
covering a massive topic.
That's
and-
true.
Yeah.
And you've been to Athens, of course, many times, and the Stoa of Attalus, right?
Yes.
Attalus II.
Yeah.
That's not an educational institution. It's more of a commercial enterprise.
Right.
But the reconstruction by the Rockefellers, right? Isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Paid for the reconstruction of the Stoa of Attalus II there in the Agora. That was one of these Hellenistic potentates, monarchs, making a large bequest to a civic polity.
Right.
And then it was used for educational purposes.
Yes. Yeah. Good.
So, Jeff, before we go on to the section entitled The Attic Ephebia, let's just give a summary here of what Marrou says about the municipal character of these institutions. This is the bottom of 104. Could you give us some of that paragraph, please?
Yes. The municipal character of these educational institutions makes it difficult to give a comprehensive account of the subject that would be both brief and accurate. We know what a passionate attachment the Greeks had to the ideals of liberty and autonomy. The Hellenistic cities could not even agree on a common calendar. It is therefore hardly likely that they would be able to pursue a uniform educational policy. They almost seem to have taken a delight in complicating matters. The same titles often signified different offices in different cities, whilst in other cases, the same kind of function was performed by officials bearing different titles.
That sounds pretty awful.
It does sound pretty
So
awful.
they couldn't agree on a common calendar.
Right.
So you leave Athens on a Tuesday, and the same day you show up in Corinth, and it's Wednesday.
It's right, exactly. Right. Yeah, it's imagining. It's hard to it's hard to comprehend how anything got done in a coordinated manner.
Yes,
right?
in a sort of what's the word? An intramural, intercity sort of way.
Yeah.
But I think this is what you were saying about how among the Romans this would never have been tolerated.
Right.
But in the Hellenistic era, maybe the variety is just a function of the fact that there was no possibility of systematizing it.
Right.
And I guess he would say there was no interest in it either.
Yeah.
Passionately devoted to liberty and autonomy. So if you're working in the Anchorage, Alaska, or the Honolulu school district, maybe you don't want someone in, I don't know, Alexandria, Virginia, in the U.S. Department of Education.
Right.
Now, I'm sounding political, but it's really just to illustrate the notion.
Yeah.
Telling you how to teach your classes.
Yes. Yeah.
Or maybe you do. I don't know. If it comes with a lot of largesse, because you may not have the resources in Anchorage, I don't know anything about Alaskans, to implement the kinds of programs that you could if you got some of that money from, I don't know, the reaches of a place like Los Angeles,
right,
or Dallas, Texas,
right.
What do you think, Jeff?
No, I think that's right on. It reminds me of controversies that pop up when a large urban school system brings in a new superintendent from a different state.
Don't you mean Super Nintendo?
Yeah, that's what I meant. Super Nintendo, right? Except when they bring in that gaming system from another state. Or when I've heard it more recently is, well, it's like a police department that's struggling, and so they bring in a new police chief from a large city halfway across the country, and the complaints are always, what does this person know? How do they know
about
anything?
Us.
What do they know about us? Right? Exactly. Why not get someone homegrown, who kind of lives and breathes and has been kind of living in that air. I think that again, nothing new under the sun.
That's right. And so, says Marrou, just to close this out, we must proceed with care. To begin with, it is not true that education simply became a state concern in every Hellenistic city. Since it was a matter of general interest, the state could not be indifferent to it, and therefore, almost everywhere, it was an object of the city's attention, but not always to the same degree, nor in the same way at the different degrees. So that's an important summary statement. It doesn't really satisfy. It's still quite vague, I would say.
Right. And I think he kind of gives away a big part of the problem in this last paragraph here, where he mentions that really the only system that we have a lot of evidence for is the Athenian system. Right. And that's always the problem when you're talking about these huge subjects and how do they relate to each other across these vast territories and tribal units, is that there's just not a lot of evidence out there. I think Marrou does a really good job in the rest of the chapter, kind of giving us the bits and pieces that suggest, okay, Athens was clearly the model, and here's where it differs around the edges. But when you're talking about a mass of evidence, you're really only talking about Athens.
Mm-hmm. And speaking about a mass of evidence,
yes,
it's time for the ads.
All right. This episode of Ad Nauseam is brought to you by Ratio Coffee. Dave, I see you across the table. You've got your very well used. That thing's been a lot of places.
It's banged up a little bit. It's a Contigo with all auto seal technology.
Yes.
They got a free shout out there. There's no kind of sponsorship, but it works even though it's banged up.
Fantastic. And I'm going to guess that is filled. You didn't have that filled at the barn brew down the road, right? That is filled with Ratio 8 brewed coffee from your house this morning.
That's correct. Yes, I put some beans in my Baratza grinder. It was a combination of calf and decaf.
Okay.
And then I poured some water into the there's no plastic in this machine.
No way.
Right. None at all. The tiny little bit of silicone where the water exits the Fibonacci head.
That's right.
I always think about that when I'm watching it brew.
Yeah.
And then it coursed up through the metallic veins at 200 degrees Fahrenheit, actually, just shy of boiling.
Yes.
And then down into the cone, and out came delicious automatic pour-over coffee. I didn't have to stand there and circle my arm around and try to make the coffee on my own.
Yes.
I just pushed a button.
That's all there is to it.
I walked away. I came back. It was done.
Yes. 3 stages, right? You got the bloom, You got the brew, and then is the last stage even a stage? It's done.
It's ready.
It's ready.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Enjoyment. They should call it the enjoyment stage.
Yes.
It's probably too large to fit on the
fit
machine.
on the machine, right? Exactly. Yeah.
And you had some coffee this morning?
I did. I found that my lovely wife has fallen in love with the ratio brewed coffee, and she gets very impatient about it.
Really?
So, well,
You're going to throw her under the bus?
well,
Poor Beck.
no, I understand where this comes from, but I mean, one of the ways that I serve my wife is that I
Right.
get up early and I get stuff going, and
Nice.
and she'll shoot me a text from upstairs and say
Right.
and ask you, "Would you bring me some coffee?"
Do you guys text within the house?
We do.
Yeah.
Do you guys do that?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do
I think
that.
so too. Sometimes when we're even sitting next to each other.
Yeah, exactly. So I will get the morning text, would you please bring me some coffee?
Right.
And usually, almost always,
So you're like a maitre d'.
I've already, exactly. Yeah, very, though an informal one. Right. And the coffee's ready to go, and I just pour a cup and I bring it upstairs. But this morning I had other things going on, and I forgot to get it ready.
Oh, no.
And so
no tip.
and so I texted back, said, I'll get it brewing.
So you didn't forget the request.
Right.
You just forgot to follow through.
Well, it wasn't done in my usual order. Usually I have it done. I've had a cup or two by the time I get her text. Right? But this time I was doing other things in the house. Yeah, exactly.
Sounds like a tub of crock.
Right. Right. So I said, I'll get it brewing right now. She texted back, unacceptable. Right. Right.
So are you in the doghouse or are you out of the doghouse?
I'm out of the doghouse.
Okay.
It was all in good fun.
Good.
We have had those mornings where, like the rare morning where I will not have gotten up early, and Beck will text me, "Would you bring me some coffee?" And I'm still laying right next to her.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Does she know how to use the ratio 8?
Of course.
It's not a complicated machine.
No,
it's got how many buttons? Let's see.
One. Exactly. It's very intuitive.
And beautiful, you would say?
It's beautiful. It's sleek. It's elegant. Right? As I think I said before, it puts my other appliances to shame.
They cower in the corners.
They're embarrassed to even be in the same room.
The toaster.
Yeah.
Get me started on the toaster.
Exactly. So, listeners, if you want one of these wonderful machines, you have the ratio 8. The ratio 6 is kind of the younger brother. And then coming soon, the ratio 4. So if you're a longtime listener and you've wanted one of these machines, but you've just said, I can't really justify that cost, because these are not inexpensive machines.
No, they're an investment.
They're an investment. Coming soon is the ratio 4. Dave, tell us a little bit about this.
Well, the first affordable and beautiful half-batch pour-over coffee machine, the ratio 4, is the smallest brewer yet. An agile, sleek machine that puts out between 5 and 20 ounces of coffee per batch. That is, you can select the amount. It's not just
That's
random.
just a random. Yes.
This time I got 7. Next time I might get 14.
Right.
Enough for 1 to 2 reasonably sized cups or 1 large travel mug. It brews with a bloom cycle in 4 minutes or less.
That's speedy.
That's fast. Removable water tank can be positioned on the left, the right, or behind the machine, small enough to fit on any countertop. It's about the dimensions of a sheet of paper. It's 11.5 inches tall and 7.5 inches wide.
I want one of these for my office.
Yes, I do too.
Yes.
Everyone is going to want one of these for their office, because
Yes.
no more drinking Keurigs, right?
Right.
No more marsupods with a little bit of Joey in every sip.
Right.
Hand-blown glass carafe designed in the USA, a BPA-free water tank. It's going to be excellent.
Excellent. Right. So that's coming soon. We don't have a release date yet, right?
I think September.
September. Fantastic. Excellent. So, but in the meantime, if you want to get yourself one of the 8s or the 6s, go to ratiocoffee.com, find the machine you want, and type in this coupon code ANCOA8.
A8.
Yes.
And the A stands for...
I dropped the ball with awesome last time.
Appetizing.
Appetizing. There it is. Right. And that will get you 15% off your entire order.
That's correct. Check it out. This episode of Ad Nauseam is also brought to you by Packet Publishing. Packet, Packett, with...
Wait a second. Packet?
Packet.
Is this new? Is this a new...
Isn't this our sponsor?
No, it's Hackett.
Such titles as Grilling with Foil Packets. By the way, this is a real book. Grilling with Foil Packets. Delicious all-in-one recipes for quick meal prep, easy outdoor cooking, and hassle-free cleanup. That's a real title.
That's a real title?
Yeah.
Do you own this book?
No, not yet.
But that's a premier title from Packet Publishing?
Also from Packet Publishing, The History of Splenda, Sweeter and Lower, and finally, Wild Hearts Can't Be Aspartamed.
The poetry of NutraSweet.
Right.
Oh man,
Hackett Publishing.
Hackett
They're our sponsor, aren't they?
No. It's
No, okay.
this is Hackett.
Ah, right.
Right.
Okay.
Much broader.
Okay.
Right, exactly.
Tell us about Hackett Publishing.
So Hackett Publishing. I mean, come on, these guys. They're great. They've been with us from the very beginning of this podcast. They have been in business for 53 years now. Offices in Cambridge, Massachusetts, Indianapolis, Indiana, and they are keeping the flame alive in terms of the classics, but also in terms of producing great translations, accessible, affordable works in academic topics.
Well researched,
comprehensive, right? And multiple translations of the same work.
Yes, we have in Ovid's Metamorphoses.
Mm-hmm.
We should do another Ovid vignette.
Yeah,
It's been a while
we're
since
due.
we
Yeah.
dipped into Ovid.
Yeah.
We have the Stanley Lombardo translation and the Ambrose translation.
Right.
Both brilliant translations of this amazing poet.
Right, and it will not destroy your wallet.
No, your students love it.
They do.
They're in the Department of Language and Thought. When you assign some texts,
Yes.
I just can't let it go, can I?
Exactly right. Yes, they will read these books that are written in a language, and they will think about
That's
them.
correct.
That's right.
And they'll do so affordably. It's not going to break their little banks.
That's right. And so, yes, I wish that Hackett published texts that I could use in all of my classes,
Right.
because I know that the students will like them. They'll be high quality, and they will love the price point.
That's right.
Yep.
So if you want to score some new volumes to add to your library so that you can drink coffee and read books at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
Jeff, what should they do?
They should go to hackettpublishing.com. That's HACKETT publishing.com.
Not pack it
Not Packet.
or crack it
Nope.
or quack it
No, none
or
of those.
smack it.
No, go there on your own time. But
That's
your,
right.
Your time is better spent at hackettpublishing.com. Scroll through their tremendous offerings and find the books you want. Put them in the grocery basket. And Dave, what's our coupon code?
The coupon code is AN, as in ad nauseum, and then the current year 2024. And this will get you two wonderful things: 20% off your entire order and
Free publishing. Free shipping.
check it out.
All right, Dave, as we get back into it, let's dive into this next section, which
Okay.
Marrou has titled The Attic Ephebia.
And I think if I look at the clock, Jeff, that
Yes.
we're going to really have to finish off this episode after this section.
Yeah.
Even though we're halfway through the chapter,
Yes.
it's got a lot more rich meatiness
Right.
than I expected.
Yeah, indeed. And so we can maybe finish up this chapter in the next episode.
Okay.
Right?
So you want to start us out then? What does he say about the Attic ephebia there on page 105?
So he writes, however it originated, and whenever it first appeared, a matter about which there is some dispute, the Attic ephebia seems to have been an adaptation of Spartan military training to the requirements of a democratic regime. It was a way of producing soldier citizens with the emphasis on the soldier. There is evidence of its existence from about 370 onwards, but it did not receive its final form until much later, immediately after the defeat of Chaeronea in 338, as the result of a law for which Epicrates seems to have been responsible and which was passed between 337 and 335.
I think you should continue there. That's good stuff, too.
Okay, our knowledge of it is derived from certain inscriptions which show that it was functioning regularly from 343 to 333 onwards, and from Aristotle's detailed description of it as he saw it round about the year 325.
Okay.
So now I thought that this was interesting. So there is kind of this emphasis, or maybe a return to an emphasis on the soldier citizen.
Correct.
A military ideal.
So this is during the time of Alexander's ascent, after the great conflict between Sparta and her allies, and Athens and her allies in the Peloponnesian War.
Yes.
And then you have the rise of Thebes in the center portion of the 4th century.
Yes.
And you have the rise of Macedon under Philip II, whom many call the most underrated general of antiquity.
Yeah.
You have to be known for something.
Right. Right.
Right.
It's like being Charles the Bald.
That's correct.
Right.
Yeah. So I would like to consider you the most underrated co-host on all podcasts.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's a compliment.
It sounds a little bit like a non-pliment.
No, it isn't.
Okay.
I've never heard that. A non-pliment?
I think I came up with that myself.
Really?
Yeah, exactly. Well,
Yeah. No, you are the most underrated co-host.
Oh, okay. All right.
I mean, you deserve the majority of the credit for what we're doing, but you're like Philip II. Nobody realizes it.
Oh, excellent. Yes.
So the ephebia, then, is a system of education which became very popular in the region of Attica, of which Athens is the largest city, and then it spread elsewhere.
Yes.
And what is it? precisely? What does Marrou say in the next paragraph?
He breaks it down. He says there were basically three parts to this.
Okay.
The idea behind it was to produce soldier citizens adapted from Sparta, as we read. And then it culminated in 2 years of service. The first year of that service would be given over to kind of basic training, getting your body and your diet in order. And then the second year was made up of military maneuvers.
Okay.
And then also
playing Stratego.
Right. And then also there was involved in this moral and religious training as well.
Okay. Marrou says, each year, on the basis of the civilian records, the demes, which is like a county, right, demoi, the demes drew up a list of the young men who were about to attain their civic majority, i.e. 18. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
The age of, you watch a lot of those crime dramas and so forth, and you read about them.
Yeah.
A person at the age of 18 is prosecuted very differently than a person at the age of 17 years and 10 months.
Indeed.
And I know a former prosecutor in a Midwestern state. He went to law school, got a degree, and was elected as the county prosecutor. And so I asked him some questions about this, and he said, based on my experience, there's a massive difference between an 18-year-old and like a 25-year-old or 23-year-old. So even though it's a short amount of time, the differences are profound. So kind of his comment was, you have to do something about criminal activity at the age of 18, but in some ways he wasn't sure it was the best thing because there's still so much childishness at that age. So, 4 years or 5 years is not the same at every stage of one's life.
Right, exactly.
When you were 48 or 47, between then and now, not a lot has changed in terms of your character, maybe nothing. I mean, that's the case for me.
Yeah, same here, yeah.
But between 18 and 23...
Massive changes.
Right. But it's interesting to me, I bring this up because the age of majority was the same in the Hellenistic era as it is today.
Yes.
There's something about the age of 18 or perhaps 19 which marks out you're grown up.
Right. Yeah, I find that really fascinating too. You'll hear these arguments about that drawing the line there, right?
Yes, I was thinking about those too. So I can die in a war, but I can't drink a beer until I'm 21?
Exactly, right. Or you hear those things and I don't know what the evidence for this is, that the human brain isn't fully developed until like you're 26. Or
I've heard that there's pretty good evidence for that.
Yeah, and so then the question was, well, why are we drawing the line at 18? Then come back to what we were talking about earlier in the episode is we live in a culture of extended adolescence.
Correct.
So an 18-year-old today is not the same as an 18-year-old in 1950.
Right. Presumably,
right.
I mean, the person hasn't changed. The cultural expectations have changed a lot.
Exactly.
A lot more people in the 50s, were married at the age of 20, and were already in their second career.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And so, but I'm very sympathetic to, the powers that be that have to draw these lines.
You have to make them somewhere.
You have to make them somewhere.
Obviously arbitrary.
Right. And you have to systematize it to some degree too. We can't, so every court case, we have to take in all kinds of different variables and say, well, this 18-year-old is different from this 18-year-old.
Right.
And so
that's the job of the jury.
Yeah, true.
To depart from or adhere to a given standard. Yes. I know that you're not interested in jurisprudence. You've already made that clear.
I'm interested in adjacent jurisprudence.
Okay. Right. But it's the age of 18. Then this list, says Marrou, was submitted to the boulé, that's the assembly, for checking and revision. And when their claims to the enjoyment of civic rights had been duly verified, how different that is than today. Have you ever been called on jury duty?
Actually, I just got a summons last week.
Wow. And you're really excited because you're thinking, here's my opportunity to contribute to the guilt or innocence of the Scranton Strangler.
I wish I could say that, but this is my seventh summons in 7 years.
Wow.
I don't know how my name keeps coming up in this so-called lottery.
It's a bad book title. 7 summons in 7 years?
Exactly, right.
Do you think you'll report?
Of course.
But will you be selected?
I've been out of those 6 times that I've already been summoned.
0.
No, I've been on one jury.
I think that the reason you weren't selected in the other times is because you have a PhD.
Yeah, do you think they even...
Absolutely. The last thing a lawyer wants is someone that thinks they're smart.
I guess so.
I was also told that the way to avoid jury duty, since we're digressing, is to wear a bow tie.
Oh, really?
Because a bow tie signals I'm an intellectual.
They don't want those.
They do not want those on the. Would you want an intellectual on the jury?
I guess not.
I wouldn't.
No. The one jury that I was impaneled upon.
Yes, impaneled.
Yes. It was really interesting, but also a very frustrating experience. And so
Now you're going to have to connect this to Greece.
Well,
Hellenistic educational institution. So there's your challenge, but go ahead.
Okay. I'm not sure I'm going to succeed there.
You can do it.
So it was a fairly interesting case involving kind of somebody disputing a traffic accident, but there was some kind of weird details involved. And I took world-class notes. And
highly detailed
notes,
right?
But it turned out the way this, I don't know how this usually works, but there were 14 of us impaneled for a 12-person jury, and halfway through the trial,
14 angry men.
Exactly right. I was more disgruntled, and then halfway through the trial, they kind of cast lots for two of the numbers to be jettisoned.
Kicked off?
And
you got jettisoned.
I got jettisoned halfway through.
You were the flotsam.
I had this case nailed down.
Right.
But I never got to figure out.
Were you going to give a speech and perorate? Turn on your heel?
I was going to be like Jimmy Stewart in one of those Jimmy Stewart movies and pounding my fist.
Can't name any of them.
The one where he goes to Congress.
And then there's the other one.
Right. I was going to pound my fist on the table.
Right.
But I never got to find out if any of my jurors saw it the same way I did.
You don't know to this day whether this individual is guilty or innocent.
No clue. I was just let go.
Sorry, guilty or not guilty.
Right. Yeah. So thank you for your service, and I was out of there. But how do I connect this to the Hellenistic era?
That's your challenge, man. You're on your own.
No idea. I just had to vent. That's all I got there.
All right.
Yeah.
The first of these 2 years of military service, says Marrou, was spent in barracks at the Piraeus.
That sounds miserable.
We went down to the Piraeus, remember?
Yes, we did.
On that train. We shouldn't tell that story again. Ooh. And here they received physical and military instruction. During the second year, they practiced campaign maneuvers, discharged garrison duties at fortified posts on the frontier, and fulfilled the functions of a militia. The ephebes were fed by the state and wore a uniform. This gets a little comic.
I like this part.
This consisted of a large hat, pedicos.
It's like a sombrero.
Worn with the hair cut short, and a black chlamys changed to white. This is it's kind of like a cloak, right?
Yes,
It's a poncho, in fact.
Right.
Changed to white for religious ceremonies, at least, thanks to Herod Atticus, who was a Hellenistic benefactor of Athens from 166 to 168. And this is the fellow that built the Herodian, remember?
Right.
Of Herod Atticus in Athens.
There's a number of things in Athens you can see that this guy
Correct,
paid for.
that he paid for.
Yeah.
And so he was responsible for changing the chlamys, which is the military poncho, from black to white.
Yes. So these guys got a poncho and a sombrero.
Right.
But they're also, I thought
it kind of makes sense though, right? Because in a Mediterranean climate, these guys did not wear full clothing for most of the military maneuvers.
Right.
But one thing that you did need so that your head didn't bake to a crisp was a hat.
Yes.
And I guess it was expensive.
I guess so. That you where I see this in ancient art is Hermes often wears this hat. The potentates.
Correct.
Before he's kind of stylized with the wings on his little cap, he has this broad brimmed, that's like a traveling hat.
You're right.
Potentates.
Do you have one of those?
I do not.
When we've gone to Greece and Rome together on trips, have you packed a hat?
Yes.
Yeah, I think I have too. It's usually a ball cap.
Right.
Trying to be as inconspicuous as possible.
Exactly.
Not taking along the urban sombrero.
This is totally the urban sombrero that they're talking about.
Right.
But I thought it was interesting that they also gave them the buzz cut. They cut their hair.
Yeah.
Right? So
also similar.
Right.
You know what I think the purpose of that is?
What's that?
To level individuality.
Yes. Oh, without a doubt. Right. To kind of break down the individual, and now you're part of this unit.
You have to function as a unit.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Every Vietnam film that's ever been made has the scene from the boot camp, right? And all about you see the young kids.
Full Metal Clippers.
Yeah, right, exactly right. Full Metal Clippers, and they all get buzzed down. And the idea is that you're always given a nickname, right? It's about kind of removing your individuality.
Yes, it has to be effaced and scrubbed off.
Exactly, break you down to build you back up into something else.
Right.
So, yeah.
Is that what this podcast does to the listener?
It does just the breaking but down. Right?
Yeah, there's a lot of breaking down.
When's the building up going to happen?
I don't know. Episodes 200 through 250.
Yeah, right.
But we need to finish up this section on the Athenian ephebe, and it's got some real meaty portions, and then we're going to leave the rest to episode 153. But Jeff, if you look at page 106, can you give us a little bit of a breakdown of what Marrou says here about how the Athenian ephebe, this young man in his Hellenistic educational institution, how he functioned? Yes.
How about this? I thought this oath that they take is really interesting. Right. So
when they became real soldiers, right?
They received their arms and swore this famous oath: I shall not dishonor these sacred arms, nor shall I abandon my comrades in battle. I shall fight for the gods and for hearth and home, and I shall not leave my country smaller, but rather I shall leave it greater and stronger than I found it, either by my own efforts or in company with my comrades.
So what do you think?
Well,
is it jingoism? Is it true patriotism? Is it appealing? When someone joins the Department of Language and Thought, is there any kind of
we should make them swear an oath
ceremony?
No, there isn't. It's just kind of welcome aboard and let's get into it.
In fact, it's interesting how you say welcome aboard, because have you noticed there's now this universal buzzword for when someone gets a new job?
What is it?
Onboarding.
Oh, I haven't heard that.
Well, it's because you haven't gotten a new job in a long time.
And onboarding?
And neither have I.
Yeah.
But young people, when they take a new job at a restaurant, or they're onboarded. It's now universal. And like all new things, I hate it.
Yeah.
Onboarding?
That's terrible.
It is.
Right. Is it? I mean, is this naval language?
Like I don't know. It's slang,
right?
It has to be naval language. It's got to be more from something nautical than from getting wrinkles out of your shirt, I suppose. So, what do you think though about the nature of a ceremony? I mean, we could criticize. I shall not dishonor these sacred arms, that is the weapons, nor shall I abandon my comrades in battle. I mean, that's so far so good, isn't it?
Yes.
Fight for the gods, for hearth and home. Shall not leave my country smaller, but rather greater and stronger than I found it. Is this what you teach your sons? I mean, not with respect to country, but around the house, right?
Yes.
I often say, okay, you went into the kitchen.
Yeah.
You need to leave it better than you found it.
Right.
So don't leave your dishes all over, but put yours away. And put someone else's away too.
Exactly.
Right? Isn't that kind of an ideal?
It is an ideal, right? It's a constant fight in our household.
I imagine.
So maybe we.
I was in a public restroom recently.
Oh no!
And it was abhorrent. Right. And for a moment, I thought, I should leave this better than I found it.
Yes.
But then I thought, no way.
No way.
I don't have any gloves.
Right.
This is sloppy chaos. It's not my responsibility.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
But I'm an old man, so I marched out of there in contempt.
Yes. No, I hear you. So I like this oath very much. I don't find it jingoistic.
Okay.
I mean, maybe some would read into this. I shall, leave my country greater and stronger.
It's imperialism.
Imperialism, right? But I don't think that's necessarily the intent here.
Assuming this is an accurate translation, which I don't have reason to doubt. Notice how he says, "I shall not leave it smaller, but rather greater and stronger." It doesn't necessarily mean size,
right?
But just on a better footing,
right? No, I think I find that quite moving in some ways, right?
Yeah. So shall we go on to the latter part of the oath, Jeff? What does it say?
Yes, it says, "And I shall submit to whosoever has authority over me and exercises it with wisdom."
So there's a caveat.
Yes. "And I shall obey the existing laws and those that the wisdom of the rulers may enact." Right. So it lays out your duty to your comrades, your duty to the gods, your duty to your own household, and your duty to the state.
Yeah. Finally, it concludes with something that would not pass muster in our Constitution. And by the way, there's one of those homophones that people use when they use that term.
What term? I'm sorry?
They say pass muster.
Pass muster, yes.
They usually say pass mustard.
Pass mustard. or the statute of limitations.
It's a statue. Yeah. But can you read that part of the oath too? Because this comes from Stobias.
Yes. And if anyone should attempt to subvert them, I will not tolerate it, but I will fight for them.
And the them here, if you could just
to the rulers.
Yeah.
That are
the
over
laws
them.
of the country.
Yes.
Right.
I will fight for them either by myself or in company with my comrades, and I shall venerate those whom my fathers venerated. And then he calls upon a number of gods, large and small here.
Yes. Be my witness. Agraulus, Hestia, Enyo, Enoalios, Ares, and Athena, Area, Zeus, Thallo, Auxo, Hegemony, Heracles, my country's frontiers, its cornfields, its barley, its vines, olives, and fig trees.
It invokes the cornfield.
Yes, he does.
Yes.
By everything.
Yes.
Right? That's the oath. And now he is an ephebe in the Attic ephebia, and he's participating in a Hellenistic educational institution.
Yes. Well, maybe we should end here. I think this is kind of an interesting reversal, is that Marrou says, this is all well and good, but there's also a deep irony to it, because this kind of comes to its head right at around the time that Athens is losing its independence to Macedon.
You're talking about the final paragraph in this section, which is at the bottom of 106 and the top of 107.
Yeah, or,
I think that's worth reading
okay.
In toto, if you're willing.
Right. So he says, just a little bit from the previous paragraph,
Okay.
there was a tragic irony in all this, for Athens developed this meticulous organization for recruiting her national army just when Philip II's victory and Macedonian hegemony had ended Hellenic independence and the free city. So right as this reaches its culmination, Philip and Alexander come along and say, nope, you're not independent anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
Before you go to that, in that same paragraph, here's a really interesting comment that maybe the readers have their own reaction to. As happens so often in the history of human institutions, the ephebia did not reach perfection until, for all practical purposes, it had lost its raison d'être, which my French isn't very good, but its reason for existence.
Right.
Its raison d'être, if you can say it that way. So the institution became perfect in terms of its development.
Yes.
At precisely the moment when it was no longer relevant.
Yeah. But that's a massive statement he's making here.
But I think there's truth to it.
Can you think of what would be another example of that? Yeah.
I was thinking of modern educational institutions. I was
Okay.
thinking of the university and college. Universities and colleges today are, in technical aspects, at the peak of their development.
Yeah.
They have so many departments, and the bureaucracy is really highly developed, as you know,
Oh, yeah.
right? Even from your work there at GRCC and institutions I've worked at. But in some ways, I would say they have lost a portion of their purpose.
Yeah.
There's no agreement anymore on the purpose, is a better way to say it.
Yeah, I think that's very much true.
Many, many people involved in those institutions are there for vastly different reasons.
Right.
I'm seeking a job. I'm seeking personal development. I'm seeking a spouse. I'm avoiding responsibility, whatever
Yeah.
it is. I'm doing all of the above at the same time.
Right.
There is no coherent, united sense, I would say.
Yeah.
And yet the institution as a whole has a kind of technical perfection.
Yeah. No, I think that's really well said and very germane to the very thing we're talking about.
Yes, you're right.
Yes. No, that's fascinating.
But could you wrap it up with that final paragraph, please?
Yes. So with the loss of independence, any civic army lost its point too. Athens, or at least the Piraeus, which held a key position, was often garrisoned by foreigners. The ephebia, as described above, ceased to function regularly, but it did not disappear. Instead, by a paradoxical development, an institution that had been intended to serve the army and democracy was transformed in the new aristocratic Athens into a peacetime college where a few rich young men could be initiated into the refinements of polite society.
Wow.
So there's where we see
That's
that
kind of damning.
it is. We see that shift away from something that was to broadly serve the state kind of across the board, and now you have the military functions being performed by mercenaries.
Correct.
And it gets kind
Trained professionals who were foreigners.
right, and then the remnants of the ephebia now becomes just kind of a finishing school for the elite.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yes.
Yes.
And a good place to end.
Yes. So so we'll pick this up next
Yes.
time. We'll finish out this chapter.
Finish off this chapter, Hellenistic Educational Institutions. That'll be episode 153.
Yes. But we're up against it, and we got to
Yes.
get out of here. But Dave,
Why?
we have to.
Why-
we-
why-
what?
Well, just a minute
Okay.
now. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Why is it precisely that we need to leave the vomitorium?
I don't know. Is there? I mean,
Page 5 of the script.
Page 5.
Look at page
I do
5.
hear some noises going on.
Oh,
up there,
yes?
But
Why do we need to leave the vomitorium?
well, it's
Now, this was yours. I'll just... Before the audience thinks I'm hammering on this because it's my crazy idea, it was your crazy idea in the AN brainstorming session back on
I was there.
December 31, 2023.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. It's the OGBBI.
The OGBBI?
Yeah, they're banging down the door.
Who are they?
Oh, the order for gravel-based breakfast items, right? Why do they need to get down here?
Are they hammering to get in?
Yes.
And we can barely hear ourselves think over the din?
Right. Are these the guys that, it's a loose consortium of the
Yes.
people that produce grape nuts?
Grape nuts, which is one of your favorite breakfast cereals, right?
That is purely gravel-based.
Yeah, but grape nuts is not the only one.
No, we've got the Nutty Nuggets.
Yes, which is I think produced by the Publix grocery store.
Okay, we've got Crunchy Nuggets.
Okay, who
which you
produces
can find,
them?
You can find that at great value at Walmart.
The Walmart brand. So
Right.
that's Crunchy Nuggets.
Yes.
Any others?
There's the Kroger Nutty Nuggets Crunchy Wheat and Barley cereal. Tell me, are these real?
Yes, they're real. You came up with OGBBI, but right. I did the rest of the work.
You did do the deep research. And there's also Grape Nuts Flakes.
Yes.
Where they gave up on the nugget, the gravel concept.
I think that to call it a grape nut and then to smash it into a flake is frankly pretty ridiculous.
Right.
Don't you think so?
It is ridiculous. But
right.
apparently there's...
Even they realize this is no good, right?
Right. So I think by coming down, like demanding to share space in the vomitorium, they're downsizing. Right?
Yes, I think so.
Right.
Definitely.
But we do got to get out of here because they are obnoxious.
They are. Yeah.
But Dave, before we go, if you want to learn some Greek or you want to learn some Latin, like Mr. Saul in our shout out,
right.
who had a not so subtle soul.
Yes.
A not so subtle a reference, allusion to your wonderful programs. What should our audience do?
Well, if they believe like I do that a classical education means studying Greek and Latin literature, preferably, if at all possible, in the original languages, they should go to mossmethod.com and check out my program. I have 4 modules. The third is in process. The first 2 are finished. You can buy them as a package unit. There are a lot of people selling Greek knowledge online. A lot of people. I call those people my competitors. Mm-hmm. And some of them are probably decent as scholars and pedagogues. I think I can say with all humility that my program is the best value because it is a combination of expertise and it's a reasonable price. Added a student this week, got to interact with this student, a fine man. And I asked him, what do you think so far as you're going through the program? And he said, well, I've signed up for a lot of your competitors. And he said, what I like so far is the thoroughness and the intensity of your instruction. You're not really leaving me to myself. Some of these other programs, I really have to do it on my own.
Right.
And so this was in the context of office hours. I was meeting with him and talking to him.
Excellent.
And so that's what I offer. And mossmethod.com, hundreds of free instructional videos and quizzes if you'd like to take some free quizzes.
Yeah.
If you want to study Latin, go to latinperdiem.com. We are almost at the 2,100 mark.
Wow.
So 2,100 free instructional videos on my YouTube channel. Pretty much every author that you can think of, I have provided some instruction on. And if you want to, that's all free. If you want to take the fee-based course, you can sign up for Unit 1 of Lingua Latina Per Se Illustrata or Unit 2. And we got a lot of students in there having a good time learning Latin, expanding their horizons. Check it out.
Fantastic. So that is latinperdiem.com/LLPSI.
That is correct.
Fantastic.
Yeah, if you just Google the name Noe, N-O-E, and Latin, you're going to hit something.
Fantastic.
So. And Jeff, we have some people to thank. I'd like to say thank you to Mishka.
Yes.
Because the way that we typically do things is I give the little ad read and you do most of the thank yous, which is fine. Mm-hmm. But I want to make sure that Mishka knows I'm thanking her also.
Yes.
And then you can maybe do the rest. So thank you, Mishka, very much for putting this together so expertly each week. You make us sound great.
Yes. And I second that. And then also thanks to these incredible musicians, Ken Tamplin, Scott Van Zen, That's that screaming guitar that you hear throughout the episode.
And the bumper music for the ads.
Right.
Yeah.
And just the generosity of these guys allowing us to use this stuff week in and week out.
That's right.
Right.
So, Jeff, if they want to subscribe, if they want to leave a review on their favorite podcast site, we would appreciate that. If they want to pick up a T-shirt or a hat that shows that they are taking in the classics and
Keeping them down.
they can go to our website, adnauseum.com, lurch with merch.
That's right.
They can pick up a Kwai Nokent Dokent T-shirt or hat. And next week,
we are going to finish off this chapter in Marrou, and we're going to kind of see where Hellenistic education takes us. And Dave, you have our gustatory parting shot, yes?
yes, and I'm not very happy about it.
Why not? Okay, well, let's see what we got here. Okay?
Well, because this is from the 19th century novelist Thomas Hardy.
Yeah.
Have you ever read any Thomas Hardy?
Never.
Yeah, so 1840 to 1928, those are his dates.
Okay.
I tried to read one of his novels.
Yes.
This was when I was in my early 20s. The title of which is Tess of the Dubervilles.
That's his most famous one, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah. And it's kind of an appealing title, right? I mean, who are the Dubervilles and who is Tess and what do they have to do with each other?
Right.
I was intrigued, but I was only intrigued for about 10 pages.
Yeah, you to abandon
And
ship?
then I jettisoned it. I was no longer on boarded.
Yeah.
And I hate to say it, but it just didn't appeal. Maybe I need to go back now as a more mature individual. Thomas Hardy, nevertheless, gives us this entirely underwhelming gustatory parting shot. And I want to hear your take on it, Jeff.
Right, exactly.
He says, quote, "There's a friendly tie of some sort between music and eating." What do you think?
Boy, that's bland.
Yeah. Is there anything profound about that?
No?
We could substitute. There's a friendly tie of some sort between sleeping and walking.
Right.
Okay.
I guess sometimes I'll have a bag of chips while I have my headphones on.
Yeah.
Right?
There's your friendly tie.
I don't notice like a real contradiction between the two.
Right. Nor anything that's deeply moving.
Right, man. Maybe, could it possibly be that this is the larger context of this quote would help us appreciate it? Or
That's possible. But what I suspect is that because he said this after he had already become a famous author, people then just have the expectation.
Oh, it's profound.
It's profound because he said it.
Because he said it, right.
I don't know.
He should have offered this under a pen name.
That's correct.
See how far it would have gone.
Penford Plumright.
That's right.
There's a friendly tie of some sort between music and eating. Okay.
All right. Thanks for listening.